Welcome back, everyone, to Kirkham Iron Tech's Best Practices. I have Tom Kirkham here with us today, and I myself is our Davin Chitwood. And today we're going to talk about some interesting statistics. And to jump off to a hot start, an interesting fact that we found today is that 69% of small businesses and overall, this can carry over to really any business, say that cyber attacks are becoming more targeted. Now, that's an interesting fact, simply because one, technology is changing. And then, Tom, I know you have an interesting take on this and why the importance of them becoming more targeted can directly affect your business or anyone else's business, of course, that's listening today.
Yeah, so I want to back up a couple of notches. And so if anyone's been through one of my continuing education webinars or any of the webinars, I usually mention and almost always talk about the sheer size and the scale of the hacking industry, which I've got an interesting and amazing fact on predictions on that in just a couple of years. But I stress the importance that these attacks are automated and they use bots and they're done at scale and they don't know who you are. They don't care who you are. They think in terms of conversion rates, right? They blast out 1 million emails or 100,000 emails. And if they get a 1% victim success rate and they collect $10,000 per victim, you know, depending on how many they sent out, it could be a $10 million, $100 million payday. And those numbers, just saying millions for a single attack is mind-boggling. But keep in mind that the largest attack that we're aware of by a single criminal organization, but it was really teams of organizations, but it was a single attack, grossed $3.5 billion with a B dollars. And the two, purportedly it's two individuals. They went by the name of G and Crab, and you can Google that and find it, but it's G and Crab. It's kind of a flip of C and Grab. Get it? Haha. But G and Grab, they netted $300 million each, and the rest of it was distributed amongst the others. But now with, you know, what is it? Chat GPT, the open source online AI chat
Very
thing
popular right now.
And I use a search engine called Neva, and it doesn't mine data. It's a private search engine founded by a former Google executive that I highly recommend. They've got a free version of it, but it doesn't track your data, you know, and it does deliver very, very good results because, you know, the founder started with Google. I think there's other ex-Google people there. But today, they just released their artificial intelligence search engine results. So just moments ago, I typed in who works for Tom Kirkham at Iron Tech Security. And lo and behold, it says Davin Chitwood works for Tom Kirkham at Iron Tech Security. Matt Caswell is the president and chief operating officer. And so they're still going to automate the attacks, but with AI, they can now typing in that very thing and then automating the rest of the process, they can send a personalized email to Davin or Matt that appears like it's from me to distribute ransomware or other types of attacks, or con jobs is really all they are. You know, they get them to open a malicious file attachment, or they try to get them to go out and buy gift cards and sending them the numbers. And there's numerous ways to scam people and make money and steal data and things like that. But we're going to see an increase in that. So, you know, if you are a small company, don't think a targeted attack can't happen to you. It happens to us constantly. Every time someone new comes on board, they are targeted. And so that means somebody's watching us. And once you become a targeted attack, you'll always be a targeted attack. They keep trying different tactics over and over again. And they're going after high net worth individuals this year at en masse, and small companies now, which in the past they would have attacked Fortune 500 companies or military or government entities. But now, especially with AI, they can automate attacks of all shapes and sizes. And once again, they don't care who you are. They're just looking for a payday in most cases. Now, there are unique circumstances to where if you have intellectual property or military secrets, those are done for different purposes. But the vast majority of attacks are for money, for the profit.
And one key thing I wanted to point out is, of course, we're talking about targeted attacks and how they can use AI and just the advance in technology of making these attacks more personal. And you mentioned specifically emails and how they're making those more personal to basically make you have more of a chance to fall for that. It's called a phishing attempt or phishing attack, but basically have a better chance of falling for that type of attack. And another statistic goes directly with what we're saying or what we're currently talking about, and that is 90% of successful cyber attacks come from human error. And most of the time that correlates with them falling for a phishing attack. They're in a hurry. You get a quick email. Oh, I need to send a gift card. My boss asked me to send a gift card. Let me send it real quick, or transfer some money that the accounting team asked me to send real quick. Now, making those more personalized, we could even see an increase in that 90%. There's only so much more you can increase in that percentage of those human errors increasing.
Right. And that's just something that you've got to stay vigilant and make sure you put in place in your culture that everybody's got to be aware that you can be an attack. I don't care if there's 2 people in your company or you're a solopreneur or whatever. You can be a victim. Just never forget that and just be aware and make security job one. It's very, very, very important to do that. I got an interesting stat for you, Devin.
Yeah, let me hear it.
All right. Once again, if you've been in through my webinars, I think I said it's around $4 trillion, but it's forecast worldwide cybercrime will hit $10.5 trillion by 2025. Once again, the vast majority, and you won't be in the vast majority. Now you're in the know if you're hearing me right now. The average person doesn't have an inkling of the sheer size and scale of the industry. And that's why it's so super critical that you educate yourself like you are right now and appreciate the fact that anyone can be a target and become a victim of these attacks. But $10.5 trillion, that's what was the other one I read earlier? The criminal hacking industry is larger than the GDP of all but 2 countries right now. Yeah, yes. Yeah, and it's bigger than all countries except for China and the United States. It even boggles my mind. Yeah,
literally,
yes, it really does, and so consequently, the cybersecurity defense industry is growing, about 25% a year, I think, on some of the statistics that I've read. And and you can stop all of these attacks with good cybersecurity like we do. So.
Yes. And to go with that, understand we're talking about best practices. And so knowing that this trend in the increase and sheer scale of these cyber attacks is supposed to be mind-boggling in the next few years. And pairing another statistic with that, 45% of specifically small businesses say that their current security processes are ineffective at mitigating these attacks. So they know that they are behind on those defensive measures. What would you recommend a small, medium, or even a large size corporation to first thing to do to start preparing for this this mind-boggling trend that's about to happen?
Right. Well, of course, we're in that business to provide that service, but what I'm saying does not negate the validity of the fact that you've got to engage a security services provider, an MSSP, in your business. And the reason for that is multifold. First of all, best practices, not just because Iron Tech once again, sells these services. But best practices says you've got to have a skilled security team engaged. And when you engage with an MSSP, there's skilled security professionals monitoring, investigating, mitigating, and remediating security anomalies on your network constantly. And, just because an attack wasn't successful doesn't mean you put your guard down. It has to be investigated to make sure there wasn't, a misdirection. So
Yes.
I've seen attacks where it looks like a typical ransomware attack that we stopped through automation and manual response. But in reality, the attack was misdirecting. It was a Trojan horse. And I mean that in the old Roman way, or the Greek mythical way, or whatever it was. But what they did was misdirect by making it appear like it's a ransomware attack. But what they did is install server backdoors or keyloggers on workstations and things like that. So it's not do it yourself anymore for anyone.
Yeah.
And, there's 1 million people in the cybersecurity defense workforce just in the United States alone. 1 million people. That's how big the security defense business is just in the United States. Worldwide, I guess we're talking, 100 million maybe.
Yeah.
Well, at least dozens and dozens of millions at the very least. And I don't know how many criminal hackers there are. I'm assuming there may be 1 million worldwide. There's only a few countries. There's only a few countries that is safe for a criminal to operate in. And I guess I'm getting a little bit off target, but the vast majority of them are going to be in Russia or sometimes former Soviet Eastern Bloc European countries, Eastern Europe. And there's a little bit in North Korea, although the majority of North Korea hacking, I think, I would expect it to be government sanctioned, nation state. Of course, China does nation state. Not a lot of criminals in China for their population, per capita, but they're generally in countries that just don't care. Or in the case of Russia, those criminals are kind of part of their cyber force, their cyber warfare force, because their interests and objectives are commonly aligned. And we saw that with Ukraine. And I'm not talking about what's been going on the last year. About 5 or 6 years ago, they did a full-scale cyber war attack on Ukraine, 2016 or 17. And they brought the country to their knees. And some experts say that was just a test run. They wanted to, he's always been thinking about invading Ukraine. And so why not? Let's do a test run and see how much we can cripple them. They stopped just short of killing people on that attack.
Yeah. Well, I have another interesting fact that I personally work with a lot of our clients on this, and it's 42% of businesses reported that cyber insurance did not cover their losses from a ransomware attack. And I know a lot of businesses, okay, they know that cyber attacks are something to worry about, or a big security risk. Okay, we'll just get cyber insurance, and if something happens, we'll be covered and we'll recover and move along, move down the road. But almost 50% of those same companies aren't getting the payouts, or their cyber insurance is just not covering the losses that they expected them to cover from a ransomware attack or overall cyber attack. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on it is, once again, engage a security professional so they can go through your insurance policy or and fill the application out. Because if you make the wrong, if it says, do you have an EDR on your network, and you don't know what that is, and you just say yes because you got McAfee or something like that, you got an antivirus, not really a true EDR, and not to mention not even a best in class or best practice EDR. You check the wrong box, and they determine that if you'd had an EDR, the attack wouldn't have occurred. They're going to deny the claim. And then so many policies won't pay ransoms. So many policies won't pay loss of productivity. I do not know of any policy that will compensate you for loss of reputation.
Yes.
And if you're in professional services, arguably any business, but especially if you're in professional services and you're handling client private information, and you're supposed to report breaches of all shapes and sizes, and clients get wind of that, I wouldn't trust a financial institution with my money or investments or whatever it may be. If they've had a data breach, I'd have to, it would be, and of course anybody can be attacked, and I understand that, but depending on how it's reported, LastPass, I know they're not a financial institution, but they're a password manager. And if you can crack LastPass as a criminal, you got the keys to the kingdoms for their users. And we use LastPass for years and years and years, and we dropped them mainly at the time. I didn't see them really working it and developing it right, and it was a little bit buggy, but it was always secure as far as I know. And now what we've seen in the past year is they've had breaches, and every time they talk about it, they reveal more and more and more and more extent. And I would not trust them with my passwords now. And we're seeing things like today, saw a report that Slack got compromised. So, and that's something that we use every day. Now we take additional safeguards, we use multi-factor authentication and other things, but, you think about all the applications you use in your business. And so the breach could affect you, even though your company's network was not breached. Now, is insurance going to pay for that? Right?
Most likely not.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Are they going to go sue Slack, to recover their payout, even if they do pay out? And the bottom line with insurance is it's like all other insurance. You've got it just in case. It's not there. It's not there to put you back 100%, no matter what type of insurance it is.
You have to put the preventative measures in place first, just like home insurance. I mean, if your house catches on fire, okay, the claim will pay itself. But if you didn't have a smoke detector installed, then most likely, or maybe they weren't working, most likely that claim's not getting paid out. You have to have those preventative, I guess you could call them defensive measures in place before you can even rely or even think about cyber insurance or overall insurance as a whole.
Yeah. And I'll go out on a limb and just predict by the end of 2023 that you're not going to be able to obtain cyber insurance without them either doing a risk assessment or them specifying you've got to have these things in place for us to underwrite the policy.
Or it'll be too expensive. I mean, last year we saw 200, 300% premium increases.
Our company alone, it tripled.
Yeah.
Without any claims, right?
Yeah.
Because we haven't been breached, but and I hope that's always the case in neither of our clients. But but it still went up it almost tripled, like 250 to 300%, somewhere along in there. And that's what everybody's seeing.
Yeah.
The other part of it that, if you're still hoping it won't attack to you, it won't happen to you, or if that's your strategy, or you think you've got all the right protections in place, your industry is going to be regulated. And that's really the only stick. I call it's the only thing that the federal government and state governments can do in the United States to cut back on this. We don't have a bunch of criminal hackers that we can redirect in a war on Russia. It's going after criminals mostly. It's, the United States can't go in and declare war on Russia over criminal activity. That's preposterous. And so we're seeing every industry getting more and more regulated and requiring best practices to be put in place. EDR, skilled security team, multi-factor authentication, disk encryption, and many other things are being required. And some industries have been being fined for years if they have a breach. And we're seeing it more and more. Automobile dealers, aviation industry, not just commercial passenger stuff. We're talking about cargo and everything like that. And more EPA starting to begin regulating the water industry, water and
Mhm.
wastewater industry. That's sorely
Critical infrastructure.
Yeah, that's the weakest critical infrastructure in industry out there. It's frightening how
Mhm.
insecure that industry is. Mainly because it's composed mostly of very, very small companies. You know, electric companies are huge, and they got a big national electric grid for the most part, and so they can afford these tools and techniques, and whereas most of the water systems can't. But they're going to figure out how at some point in the future, because we have to have water.
They're gonna have to.
Yeah, we can get by without electricity for days or weeks or whatever, but not water.
No.
Let's see if we can find another one. Oh, and you guys can Google this anytime you want to. You
Yes.
find it just healthcare, crypto, cyber. Hey, you want to, what is it? I don't even know what the statistic is, but it's got to be 99% roughly of all ransom is paid in
crypto.
Bitcoin. Yeah, and
Bitcoin,
cryptocurrency, yes. and somebody and people think, well, it can't be traced. Well, that's not true. And let me back up a minute on this. Talking about cryptocurrency, it's not real money and all that. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole with everybody, but it's most worldwide crime is still happening with stacks of $100 bills. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing, Bitcoin really has nothing to do with it. Ransomware attacks have been around for over 20 years. That's years before Bitcoin was even invented. Okay. But Bitcoin allows the transfer of money practically instantly anywhere in the world, but it is trackable. In the case of Colonial Pipeline, mm-hmm. the FBI, that was roughly a $4.5 million ransom that was paid. I think it was Colonial Pipeline that paid it. But anyway, in this particular ransomware attack, if I have the right one, the FBI was able to claw back some of that. I think more than half of it. But Bitcoin's traceable. It's not anonymous. $100 bills are anonymous. Yeah. That's why automobile dealers have to report someone that buys a $50,000 car or $15,000 car with $100 bills. It's because they're tracking the laundering of money or illegal gains, however, whatever the reason is. But Bitcoin's trackable. It's a public ledger of every single transaction and every single wallet that holds Bitcoin. The deal is they use Bitcoin because it's frictionless, and they're typically in countries to where, once again, they're not going to be prosecuted or even arrested for that matter. When we see the news of a Russian criminal hacker getting arrested in Greece, it's because they took a vacation, and Interpol or somebody picked them up, while they were on the beach, but then they get extradited back to Russia, and Russia lets them loose. So anyway, the lesson to be learned is Bitcoin is traceable. So
this is an interesting fact here. It says the most popular security software is basically most commonly used and relied on by organizations is Norton Security, the leading antivirus.
Awesome. That's it's not acceptable.
No,
the latest version. Now there are corporate versions, like enterprise. Kind of they target the enterprise market, but the consumer market, the latest versions, unless they've changed it, but last year they released an internet suite that actually had a crypto miner built into it. They did it intentionally, and they derive revenue from it. I can't, in the farthest reaches of my mind, make a business use case, if I were the CEO of that company, in allowing that to even be implemented at all. That goes against the very tenets of what they're doing. They are turning their clients not only into potential victims by introducing code that has nothing to do with security, but also consuming resources on the computer. I mean, they're going against their end users.
Yeah,
and that's part of the problem, right? The game has changed, and not only is it huge, the industry is huge, Not only that, and it's automated, and they don't care who you are, and anybody can be a victim. But when these nation state level, these cyber warfare weapons are available and being used by criminals, the Stuxnet virus that the US and Israel created to attack Iran's nuclear enrichment facility is being used against us in the US each and every single day. It's been modified. It'll function against any type of industrial control system, amongst other things. And using 30-plus-year-old technology to defend your family or your business is simply not adequate anymore. It'd be like owning a Model T,
literally,
and as your daily driver, it's just not practical.
We've talked about the advancement in cyber attacks and the technology being used, and people, like we said, we've relied on Norton and these antiviruses for 30 plus years. But if the attacks are advancing at an extreme rate and our defenses aren't, then it's simply just irresponsible to rely on old technology. You have to at least attempt to advance your cybersecurity defenses to keep up with the sheer advancement in technology for the cyber attacks. And you talked about EDR. Now, some people may not know what EDR is, but that's a endpoint detection and response tool. But that is basically a replacement, or I call it the big brother, to these old antivirus tools. And it's simply what you have to ensure that your organization, your devices, your technology is safe. It's the advancement that you have to make, and it's just part of doing business now. It's part of doing business, and it's what you have to do to keep your doors open now in 2023.
Yeah, and I make the comparison to the early days of the PC industry. As a business owner or a manager or whatever, am I going to get a return on investment by putting a PC in accounting? I mean, that's 40 years ago, that's what you thought, because PCs were $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. They were heavy, had a little green screen or an amber screen, Is this, and you had to train people because there wasn't Windows, it wasn't, and that was, nobody grew up with technology. And so it was a tough decision. And the early adopters were true visionaries in that, saying, oh yeah, this is a good investment. But the vast majority of people didn't do that until about Windows 3.1. That's what changed it. And arguably Apple earlier, but not nearly as much as what Windows did. And so today, that's where most businesses are. What is my, I don't think we need it, or, there's no ROI on it. And the only ROI on it is keeps you from going out of business, or having to pay a ransom, And there's many, many things that, see, these days let's automate everything we can, put computers on everybody's desk and blah, blah. It's a no brainer, right? There's going to be, you don't even have to do the math on it, It's going to increase productivity and efficiency and hit the bottom line every day. Everyone knows this. You could be an art major and know that that's the case, right? For your business. Art, if you're an artist, you're still going to use a computer to keep track of selling your paintings, right?
Exactly right.
So, but that's the big challenge that we have. And if there's any takeaway from this whole thing, if you haven't engaged a security professional to do an assessment in your company and to help guide you in selecting the right administrative controls, the procedures and policies that you need to put in place, and the technology that you need to put in place, and then somebody to monitor and manage it, and all of those things that go along with it, it's just going to be a matter of time before you're going to be forced to do it anyway. So why say, well, they're not going to regulate my industry for 3 years, so at least I don't have to worry about it until then? Well, yeah, you do, because in that 3-year period, you may get attacked, and you probably will.
Right. Yeah.
Some of these statistics are incredulous to me, but they're all referenced, and it's legitimate research. And it just boggles my mind of how many people become a victim. I do it in webinars, and it's anywhere between 10 to 30% of the people watching me in a webinar have been a victim in the past, and they still don't put the right stuff in. But just remember, it's not do it yourself anymore. No one, that's like teaching yourself to do brain surgery.
Yeah.
No, I don't, that's not a shade, throwing shades on brain surgeons or neurosurgeons or whatever, but it truly is a special, unique skill set that requires expertise and a lot of experience. And that it's changed, in the last 5 to 10 years, but especially since these nation state weapons have become available and are being used by criminals. I think we can wrap this one up, Devin.
Yep. Thank you all for attending. Of course, we're going to be dropping these more often and talking about different topics regarding cybersecurity and how it affects your business. And of course, if you have anything specific that you'd like for us to talk about, feel free to reach out and we'll make sure to throw it on the next short. But you all have a good day and we'll talk to you next time.